Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I've got a very exciting upload to share with you. I got an email back from the sheriff's deputy. Unfortunately, he cannot be on the channel. I will read that email to you and share what he shared with me. Also, I want to cover one of my favorite encounters, the ambulance encounter from Connecticut. Before we get into that, though, a couple links I'd like to share and something I'd like to get off my chest. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. All those links are in the description below. I also have a second channel for creepypasta, fanfiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that, well, they really don't fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything you're into, follow that link and give those stories a listen. You may just like what you hear. Now, I've taken enough of your time, guys. Let's get on with today's encounters. Shall we? Something I'd like to address before we get into the email and the encounter. I have decided to give up on fighting the trolls. They're going to be there. Always. The comment section is flooded with them. There's nothing I can do. I can go through and block them or delete them and waste a whole bunch of time. Today, though, a former subscriber crossed a line and started a Reddit post calling me a pill junkie and an unfit father, stating that because I believe that William/Victor is real, that my mentality is corrupt and I am not a good dad, and that I have a pill addiction. Well, both of those are false, and I apologize for that loud motorcycle going by. Our town has a Americade going through right now, which is a bunch of motorcycles. When I first got sick, I was in a lot of pain and the doctors could not figure out what was going on and what was causing the pain. I was prescribed hydrocodone and became addicted like many people do. I realized that I was addicted to hydrocodone and reached out for help. I have 4 years, 2 months clean with no pain medication. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke weed. I do nothing. So that right there was a slap in the face, because going through the pain that I was going through and then deciding to detox from these pain pills was terrible. The pain from the neuropathy and then the pain from the withdrawal was just horrendous. Very proud of those 4 years and 2 months. So that really pissed me off. But then when you mention my daughter and my fatherhood, well, that's a line that you really shouldn't cross. See, I could mention your name, but I'm not going to, because I'm more of an adult than you are. I'd personally like to have you in a room with just me and you and split your forehead wide open, but unfortunately, I'll never get that opportunity. I think that the defamation of character is just uncalled for. It's a YouTube channel. I'm trying to spread the word and help myself and help others. If you disagree with anything that I say, don't listen to it. But do not ever question my fatherhood, because those two things right there are cause for a criminal and civil defamation of character suit. I'm not going to do it because that's not who I am. I'm not some SJW Sally boy like yourself that probably still cries to his mom when he skins his knee. But I will if you proceed. I've done nothing to you except not admit to something that I don't believe. I don't believe that William/Victor is a fraud. And this is why you're causing me this pain and this anger. If I don't believe something, I'm not going to admit it. If you believe it, that's fine. But I don't. Also, then another person, because I said Dark Waters, gave me a shout out. Yes, the Dark Waters, the great one. He has the most amazing story, if you guys have not heard it, called Siege of Lockhart Ranch. He also has an amazing roast, but let's not get into that. It's truly funny. But he has it in comic book form. I'm a comic collector. I love comics. And I said it's one of the most amazing stories I've heard. I don't know if it's true or not because people were saying, is it true? They were asking me. And I said, I don't know if it's true. I've never heard other than on his channel. I know there's encounters that happen in Oklahoma, but I never heard of that other than that upload he did. An amazing upload. He's an amazing narrator. He's an amazing researcher. He's an amazing man. And I'm glad that he is on my side because he is not someone that I would want against me. He has done a lot for this community. So has many others. But for me to get targeted because I don't believe in some things that some people say or some people do, I don't discredit anybody, and I never have. I've never talked about people behind their back. So, I mean, I'm glad that DW is on my side. I've never said ill words about the man. And I have a friend who has a YouTube channel. Actually, I have two people that I know that have YouTube channels that can vouch for me never saying anything about him. One actually did some work with him. So I just stop the rhetoric. These are, you're calling me a liar, but then you're making up lies to just, I don't even know. It's doing nothing. It's causing me frustration. I'm not going to stop my channel. I'm not going to admit something that I don't believe to be a falsehood. I don't believe that William or Victor is lying. I don't believe it. There's been too much proof proving that he is real, and not enough proof to tell me that he's not. So to this person, please just end it. I mean, be a man, okay? Just end the bullshit. I'd really appreciate it. I'm not mentioning your name. I'm calling you out. I'm keeping your anonymity. So just please, I've done nothing to you except not agree with you. Don't question my fatherhood and stop spreading lies, dude. That's just wrong. Now, I've definitely taken enough of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? This is the response from the sheriff's deputy. Hello, Jeff. I'm sorry I have not gotten back to you more recently. Also, with current events, I am working nights and out on the streets. I am a lieutenant now, and on a promotion list for captain. I plan on retiring in 4 years when I hit my 20th of law enforcement. I wish I could go on your show, but my voice is pretty recognizable. It's been on TV a few times. Also, I was contacted by my last handler and told not to share much more than I already had, as some of what I said can currently affect their operations. I can talk with you about my incident, but cannot divulge anything related to what they are currently doing or have done recently. They are listening to your channel. William may be part of that same organization, but that is beyond my knowledge. Agent Bob is kind of more like a serious combo of Jeff Bridges from R.I.P.D., the movie, and Alton Brown's impersonation of Colonel Sanders. I've always liked him, as I think he bent rules to ensure my success in surviving the revenge of attacked Dogman. When he said, "Trust your dog," he was telling me that she would be my early warning system. I have always had a dog since Lucy. I also wanted to add that Lucy passed of old age in 2012. Whenever I go into a wooded environment, I now carry a Glock 20 and 10mm with some really hot loads. I also carry a 4570 Marlin, 1895 SBL with 430 grain payload. Since my encounter, a few times I have camped with family has been in Montana, Utah, and Idaho. I've never run into another cryptid. If you have any additional questions about my encounter, please feel free to ask. I'm going to send an email to him with some questions that I have and share those with you. I do appreciate him letting us know that Lucy did not pass during that attack. I honestly thought she did because there was no more mention of her, which is truly amazing. So I'm glad that he got to spend some more time with her. Now, let's get into one of my favorite subscriber encounters. Jeff, firstly, I'd like to say I've been a long-time listener of your channel, and I am continuously entertained and captivated by your narration and videos. Anyway, I had a Dogman sighting a few years ago in 2010. I was working in an ambulance at the time with a partner, and only recently did my partner divulge his side of the story to me. It was an initial Reddit post I created years ago, but with the addition of my partner's information, I've rewrote it into something that is easier to read to the audience. After the sighting, I became obsessed on trying to figure out what it was we saw, whereas my ambulance partner wanted nothing to do with it and completely shut the topic down any time I tried to bring it up. Until about a week ago. I finally got him to cave and tell me what he saw that night. I've only shared this story a couple of times, and this is the first time it's been shared with the additional information. It's unique, at least I think it is, in that it takes place in Connecticut, not exactly Dogman Central. I hope this sighting serves you well. You will find it attached below, hopefully in a non-messy format. I'm on mobile and apologize if it comes out wacky. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Keep fighting the good fight, my man. So the first part will be my point of view, and the original post edited with some details that I had left out. Hopefully it reads less like a Reddit post and more like something you can share with your viewers. My work partner that night refused to acknowledge or talk about the event for almost 9 years. The second part will be from his point of view. I'm a former paramedic who plays an EMT on the weekends now. I always thought if I were to experience something paranormal at work, it would be in any one of the number of ambulances I have used on the account of all the souls that have passed through. My partner and I were not that lucky this night. I used to work in a moderately sized city in central Connecticut, and our company covered surrounding towns and had contracts to cover inter-hospital transfers and things like that, much further away from our 911 coverage area. City itself is only a couple of 100,000 people with suburbs and a river valley, and then rural woods beyond, nothing special. We had to respond to the fringe of our coverage area in another town in another corner of the state, literally nicknamed the Quiet Corner, because it is so low populated and very heavily wooded. After almost getting there, we wound up being canceled by a closer unit en route. It was 4:30 in the morning on a Wednesday in autumn of 2010. Where we were turning around was in a notoriously small, one-stoplight town. The ride back to civilization from where we were was only a 20 to 30-minute trip, but it's a long, straight, two-lane state route with dim streetlights and thick forest on both sides, with occasional residences and very few small businesses. We turned off of State Route 44 and on a road named Pumpkin Hill Road, which, after a couple of more turns onto side streets, was going to drop us further down 44 in the direction we needed to be going. Surrounding us was state forests and a couple of dirt roads, a couple of small rivers, a small lake, and not an awful lot of homes. The homes that are there are spaced pretty far apart. I was riding in the passenger seat with my face in the laptop, writing our canceled tag, mentally preparing to go home after a long night, and my partner asked, "Do you see that?" and began to slow down. Pumpkin Hill was a gravel road that's fairly narrow, and we had jet black forest on both sides of us. Visibility in front of us was clear, but to the sides you couldn't see past the 5 or 6 foot tall hedgerows that lined the road beyond the guardrail. The cab was illuminated by the laptop, so I shut it and looked up, squinted a little, and there I saw it, only 100 feet or so in front of us. A very large dog that's silver gray with straight cropped ears with little tufts on top of them, walking away from us ever so slowly with a very unusual gait, almost like it was limping. Damn thing had to be 4.5 feet at the shoulders. My partner slows to a crawl, thinking it's hurt, and maybe it has a tag on the collar. We thought surely such a magnificent beast had to have an owner. As we slowed to a crawl, some shit happened that I will never unsee or forget. And it's the day I started believing that not all things are what they seem. The idle of the ambulance isn't its usual roar. We're just creeping at about 5 miles an hour and gaining. I was on the passenger side, and it was on my side of the road. The plan was for my partner to put the flashers on and for me to whistle or hoot to see if our new friend was acclimated to humans and needed help, or if he was street tough, and to let him go on his way. We closed the 100-foot gap to about 20-30 feet. As we closed our distance, and right at the 10-yard mark or so, my partner and I simultaneously got a sense of dread. I was suddenly very aware of how much shit I was in, and my blood turned cold. The hair on my arms and neck stood on end, my vision narrowed, and my heart started pumping well over 120 beats per minute. The fucking dog stood up. He just stood up. Not like a domestic dog or a bear or a domestic cat would. Their movements are kind of awkward when they stand, and they're usually pretty quick to go back down onto all fours after a couple of steps. And we do have black bears here, but this definitely was not a black bear. It was too big. This creature was meant to stand up, and he did as fluently as you and I would. My view of this was from behind, and the bastard's shoulders would have put an NFL defense end to shame. It was a massive animal. My partner stopped the truck. The beast cocked its head to the side, ever so slightly, to the left, revealing a single yellow-greenish glowing eyeshine. Then turned to my side, the right side of the woods, and bolted. It was over as soon as it started. What my partner and I always referred to as a werewolf. We estimated him to be around 7.5 feet tall. Our ambulance has a little over 13-foot clearance, and the tufts of its ears lined up with about where our emergency lights were on the front of the top of the truck. The top of its head ended to where about the windshield ended. Its shoulders were easily twice as wide as a man's, maybe 4.5 to 5 feet. Its back muscles were well developed, and it had a tapered waist which led down to a bushy 3 or 4 foot long tail, and I keep referring to it as a he because it had enormous testicles, probably the size of basketballs. How it walked without dragging those things on the ground, I have no idea. Its quadriceps, if I had to guess, were the size of a man's waist, anywhere between 34 and 40 inches. Its legs bent backward like a canine's, and I could make it out it had an Achilles heel, and massive clawed feet. The upper body's details were more alarming to take in. The ears were cropped like a Doberman's. They stood straight up, and the tufts atop of them were a few inches tall on their own. When it snapped its head to the side to acknowledge us, it laid its ears flat back on the top of its head. He was all business when he did that. I got a perfect profile view of its face, and it had a rigid, straight cheekbones which led away from its face and towards the ginormous muzzle. The socket around its eye looked incredibly human, and the eye itself was probably the size of a racquetball, and it wasn't reflecting light from our scene or headlights. It was definitely glowing yellow-green. The muzzle could have been a foot long, and it had a big, old, shiny, maybe wet dog nose at the end of it. Its mouth was partially open when it turned its head, and then it looked like it swallowed. I only caught a second or two long glimpse of its mouth. Its gums were black, and it had a dark, maybe purple tongue. Its teeth were bright white, and it had 2 pairs of fangs. They weren't incisors or inside of the mouth. It had a pair of fangs that sat at the front and outside of its mouth, and at the front and bottom of its mouth. With his mouth closed, you could still see them, and these teeth were designed for puncturing, ripping, and tearing. Off of its incredible shoulders were its arms, which were jacked, and almost twice as long as its legs. The claws of the werewolf ended around where its knees were, and its claws had to be 5 to 6 inches long. The claws were attached to digits at the end of its hand, and did not look anything like a paw. Its forearms were longer than what its humerus would be, and made up the majority of its arm itself. Above the elbow were its biceps, which, if I had to guess, had to be somewhere between 40 inches around and well-defined. Watching it stand so fluently made sense looking back, as it obviously used the power in its legs and did sort of a push-up with its gigantic long arms to spring into that position. The thing that has always bothered me, though, is that little head tilt it did. I got the sense of dread before it stood up, like my mind and body knew something bad was about to happen, but it didn't know what. It was almost telekinetic, if that makes any sense. I just got this feeling from the werewolf, like, I know you mean well, move on, and I was never here. Then it vanished. The expression on its face wasn't angry or a scowl. It was more like a look of indifferent annoyance. Like it was saying, "Aw, man, who the hell are you? I have to deal with this now?" When it rolled to the right and bent its legs and just leapt straight up and over the hedgerows and guardrails. Didn't do a running start or even a squat that much. He just jumped. And when he did, he kept his body elongated. So from the standing position, it went at least 6 or 7 feet into the air and far enough back off and over the bush not to be seen anymore. Another easy 10 or 15 feet. After that, my partner punched it, and we drove fairly recklessly to get off that gravel road and back to one with at least some streetlights. I would have never asked him to slow down. We both wanted to get out of there, and we fled with a sense of urgency. I've seen many canines stand on their hind legs. I've never seen a hellhound sprint with precision over a guardrail and brush. That messed with my head. Other than that night, after a lot of research, I came upon legends of the Michigan Dogman and the Beast of Bray Road. The only problem is I live in Connecticut, and we're not known for our Bigfoot sightings or wacky cryptozoological stories. The town of Pumphrey, Connecticut, which was close by to the town we were in, does have some interesting wolf lore, and a park named Wolf Den State Park. The short version of the story is that General Israel Putnam, yes, that General Putnam, the Revolutionary War semi-hero, killed the last wolf in Connecticut, in the wolf den, I think around 1764 before the conflict. The story, as I recall, wolves in Connecticut were hell on. The livestock and settlers had killed the last of the she-wolf's cubs and her mate. So the story goes, she started slaughtering livestock and stalking and attacking people. Not to eat, but just to kill. One morning she massacred over 70 sheep, and Israel Putnam was tasked with putting her down. He tracked her to her den and did so. The wolf den is still there to this day. There have been dogman sightings close by in Massachusetts, and even legitimate gray wolf sightings. In the last decade or so, wolves have been finding their way down New England from Canada. I don't know what I believe in, and it's certainly not werewolves. But I totally saw something that really looked like a werewolf just that one time. My partner and I had worked together in that ambulance for 3 years at that time of the sighting. We knew each other pretty well, and as alarming the events that transpired in front of us were, there was something off about Redacted for weeks after that sighting. The ride back to the operations, we just couldn't believe what we had just seen, and exchanged things like, "What the fuck was that?" And, "I don't know, asshole, I saw the same thing you did," and, "Did that really just fucking happen? I can't believe that just fucking happened." After we fueled our truck, we punched out, and the next time I saw him was on Thursday night, for our last tour of the week before our 3 days off. When I showed up, he notified me that he had called dispatch and requested to be posted in downtown the entire night, not wanting to leave the confines of the inner city. Not an unusual or odd request. Some people prefer the busier assignments, and we definitely did. But it became a habit when Redacted, and as weeks and months went on, we were never sent out into suburbia for a call after dark for the rest of our 5 years total together. I thought I was just as shaken up as he was, but something was sitting sideways with the way he was acting. And every time I approached him to talk about it, he would immediately dismiss the topic and be stoic and quiet, or change the subject entirely, leaving an odd vibe I have never felt around my work brother before. Absolutely nothing changed about our job performance or our friendship, but after a while I suspected my partner had either seen something like this before, or had seen something that I hadn't that night of the sighting. After years of patiently prodding him and asking him what was wrong, he finally disclosed what was bothering him so much about the sighting. And it turned out it was the latter. 9 years later, I have his permission to relay his point of view. Our ambulance was a 2008 AEV box truck. It had a 13-foot clearance, and Redacted is 6'5". I'm 5'10", but when seated in the cab, sitting up and facing forward, the top of our heads were probably somewhere around 7.5 to 8 feet off the deck. As a passenger, you can't see an awful lot out of the mirrors, but as a driver, you can see down the side of the truck and pretty well behind you. There was also a mobile data terminal that controlled several functions, including lights, sirens, scene lights, dispatch response. And it also had a 4-screen camera that showed a backup camera, which was mounted on the top of the back, pointing down at an angle, 2 side cameras which covered the outside ends of the ambulance, and a patient compartment camera, which was the only one that recorded. When you were in the driver's seat, you had pretty much all 360-degree coverage. As a passenger, the most you could see out of the mirrors was jack shit, especially since Redacted was a giant, and we fought over the mirror angles all of the time. As relayed to me by him, Redacted said that when he completely stopped, he was looking at the werewolf in front of us, but had a pit in his stomach convincing him that he wasn't actually looking at us when it turned its head. My eyes were fixated in front of us on the Wolfman number 1. Redacted, trusting his instincts, and which I did not notice him doing because I was busy trying not to piss myself, already had the MDT angle right at him and started cycling through the cameras, and turned the side and rear scene lights on. The scene lights aren't the emergency lights. The scene lights are these bright, white, blue-hued LED lights that are so bright you could probably land a space shuttle from orbit with them. When he did that, he noticed that our friend in front of us was in fact not alone. He caught a glimpse of 2 of them behind us and 1 coming up on my side of the ambulance. The 2 behind us he described as Coyote Tan, and on all 4s, standing right in what our blind spot would have been. The way the camera was back is angled, he said all he could see were the tops of their heads and the tops of their torsos, their arms and shoulders, and their massive paw hands. He described them exactly as the first one was described, except with the color variation. When he turned the scene lights on, they bolted to the right side of the road, out of view of the camera. This is where it gets a little creepier. After watching their shadow and movements going to the right towards the tree line and brush, he cycled the MDT monitor to the starboard side camera, hoping to catch them and see if they were going to advance towards us or run into the brush. Mind you, this is all happening quickly and in matters of seconds. When he cycled the camera, what he saw was another Dogman. This one was on its hind legs and blacker than the blackest black. So massive it was filling the entire monitor. And with its left hand was trying to open the door into the patient compartment area. Redacted had hit the scene lights and cycled the camera and lost sight of the 2 Coyote Tan Dogman. As he couldn't see too much from the camera view, he looked in the passenger side mirror and said when he did, the black Dogman looked right back at him with its yellow eyes and grinned at him. He did see the Coyote Tan Dogman leap over the brush behind the grinning one. He told me, if you rolled your window down and reached your arm out, you guys would have shook hands. When he told me this almost a decade after the incident, my blood ran cold again. He didn't discuss it for years, and all of this time I had no idea one was less than 5 feet behind my right shoulder. He said the grinning Dogman was a sinister-looking son of a bitch. It was clearly trying to stealthily open the patient compartment door on the right side of the bus. Lucky the locks engage when the vehicle is in motion. When it was staring at him in the mirror with its toothy grin, it moved its head and saw the Dogman we initially spotted jump up and over the brush, then followed suit. My partner said it stopped grinning and almost looked like it was having a chuckle with itself. Honestly, he looked like an asshole. Turned to the right and jumped up over the guardrail with the rest of his pack. As we drove away, I rolled my window down, and we did hear a very loud, almost like a chirping or a yapping. It was more like the sounds hyenas make. When I did that, Redacted said, "Roll that back up. What the fuck is the matter with you?" As we sped away, it was over. The whole event couldn't have lasted more than a minute and a half from when we first spotted him at 100 feet down the dark road. Knowing my partner's side of the story now after all of these years, what bothers me the most now, which is what was probably bothering him for so long, is where did the other three come from? And what was their plan? What if I was someone alone in a Prius or a Mini Cooper or something? They'd be wolf shit. Were they out on a prowl just looking to ambush motorists, screwing with people? They were so intelligent to move into the blind spots and had a distraction in front like a classic ambush. After having thought I settled my nerves over these years, now I have so many more questions. I'm afraid I'll never have answers too. That's what my partner swears happened that night. We saw the wolf beast on Pumpkin Hill Road, in a sleepy little corner of Connecticut in our ambulance. One of my favorite encounters. Not only is it terrifying, but it shows the intelligence and pack mentality these things have. And also, while I was recording this, I got an email back from him. He is going to appear on my show. I am so happy that he emailed me back. I emailed him about a week ago, and then I was like, I'm just going to do the encounter. Hopefully he hears it. But being a responder with all the COVID-19 stuff going on, I'm sure he was busy. But I got an email. Literally, I got it 20 minutes ago, guys. I am so excited. I'm going to talk to him tomorrow. Maybe record it tomorrow. I don't know. We'll get things figured out then. But wow. This actually makes me very excited and partially forget why I was so upset earlier today. But I'm still upset. Anyway, guys, I hope that you guys enjoyed this encounter as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. And I hope that you guys all tune in to hear him share his encounter and me ask some questions in his own words. Thank you guys for all of your support. You guys have no idea how much it means to me and how much you guys help me. Thanks and farewell.